Well, thank you for being here. It's great. I always enjoy this conference. It's such a fun, good gathering of people, and of course, sharing our faith and worship is it's just a refreshing time for me. I am working. You know, we've got a lot of clients here that use ViewSpark, so we talk a lot about ViewSpark, and I'm presenting. But it's just also nice to be in the group and just to worship this morning. So, we just went through and introduced ourselves.
I work with MDM Fundraising.
Okay, Todd Baker, MDM Fundraising. Okay, thank you. So a quick background on myself. I've been in fundraising for 25 plus years. I started my career, after college I played a little minor league baseball, but I just wasn't very fast. And if you're not fast, you don't make it very far in baseball. So that career ended pretty quickly. I found myself doing some other things, but I ended up in fundraising at the Russ Reed Company and spent 8 so years there. Did a few other things after that. I was at a Christian school, Oaks Christian School, and I'll be sharing some examples of my major gift work that I did, things that I learned from some of these things. Oaks Christian School, I worked for Joe Torre. When he became the manager, Joe was the manager of the Yankees, the famous baseball manager. He came to the Dodgers, and I helped run his foundation on the West Coast, which was such a fun experience. Trying to tell, one of the most famous baseball managers of all time, that guess what? In LA, it's a little different than New York. You're competing with Britney Spears and the Jonas Brothers. It's not as big of a sports market as New York. And you're not as much of an icon. So that's a really fun conversation to have with a celebrity like Joe Torre. So spent some time working with him, and then I spent a lot of time at USC, University of Southern California, in fundraising, and that's really where I learned a ton of stuff about major gift work, frontline work, and have some good experiences out of that. So I'll be sharing some examples of things that I've learned. Carter did a phenomenal job talking about major gift work in the last session, and so you'll see some similarities in what we're talking about, and then also some different add-on things, different pieces like that. So a couple of things to just start with, what I want to cover. We'll talk about who should work on major gifts from your staff, how to find prospects, how to prepare for meetings, building a case for support, how to, some of the grassroots basic things you need to have when you're communicating. In-person meetings, those are a lot of fun to talk about because there's so many dynamics in meeting with donors, and there's some really cool things that we've learned in that. The ask process, and then thanking donors. What does it look like to thank donors and communicate with them? And then I'll just leave with a few keys, 4 little keys to have as you go in and really get your feet on the ground in terms of major donor work. So why major gifts? I was at the CLA, Christian Leadership Alliance Conference, a few weeks ago, and I heard Derek Baker say this: big gifts add up faster. That makes sense. You can give all this language. But it was interesting, when I was at USC, my boss, who was a phenomenal fundraiser, people would ask him, how do you guys raise so much money? I mean, we raised hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars at SC. In fact, the last campaign I was a part of was a $6 billion campaign. And the crazy thing about those campaigns, those school campaigns, it's like USC says, well, we're going to do a $6 billion campaign. And then Stanford says, well, we're going to do a $6.3 billion campaign. And then, we're going to do 6.7. And it's just this huge competition. And the crazy is we raised that money. It just came in. But someone asked my boss, said, how do you raise so much money? And he said, major gifts. We do major gifts. It's crucial because big gifts add up faster. And the other component of that, major gifts, they have the capacity to change the trajectory of your organization. You have to have, we were talking about the $18 gifts downstairs, you have to have those. And they're a part of your ministry. They're a part of the work that you're doing, and it sustains you. But if you want to just shift and just skyrocket to different levels, you've got to really focus on major gifts. Okay, who should work on major gifts? There really are different types of fundraisers. So think about your team, think about yourself, okay, and what type of fundraiser that you are. There are those that are, hey, give me the list of names, I will call them. And we've talked about quantities. Typically we hear around 150, 175 relationships are good for a major gift officer. But there are those people that have that personality of, I just need the list and I'll call them. I worked with a guy at SC, George. He would make 50 phone calls a day, 50, to major gift prospects. And he was mining a list and whatnot. But he just said, give me that list. And then you've got others, and this is where I kind of fell into it. It's like, I'll make the list. I don't have the list. And so I'll have to figure it out. In fact, when I started at SC, I actually a couple different roles there. I ran the fundraising at the Cancer Center for the men's program, and I came from Russ Reed to USC, and this is a big school, and I'm thinking this is going to be organized, whatever. I walk in, and on my desk is scribbled handwritten notes, half-done spreadsheets. And I'm like, where's the donor file? Or where are the prospects? Well, it's kind of like this and like that and this one over here. There was no organization. And so I had to kind of go in and figure out, okay, I'm going to make that list. And so the point being here is there are different types of fundraisers. Both are good, and you might fit into either category. But what are you? Are you more of a, I'm going to go figure it out? Or I just need the list. I'm not as creative. I'm really good with donors. I'm not as creative where I can come up with things, but just give me that list. So think about that, and then how that really can equip your team. It's okay to have either type of person, but just make sure that they are equipped with either the list or go and figure out. And we'll talk about the I'll make the list a little bit later and some things you can do with that. One other thing I was going to say on this, if you have new staff members or if you are new in your role, it's a really great tool to have for major gift work. When I started at SC, my line for probably a year was I'd call donors and say, hey, listen, I'm new here. I don't know anything, but I know you've been faithful to support the cancer research that we're doing here in prostate. We did prostate, bladder, urinary tract stuff. Could I just come and sit with you, leave your checkbook at home? I just want to learn more about your story and why you're interested. So that being new really can make it powerful to give you just a chance to get in front of a donor, and feel free to say, leave your checkbook at home. It's just a nice way to go to them and communicate and get something there. So a couple essential attributes you have to have. And again, think about yourself and where you fit into this, as well as your team. We talked in Carter's session a little about putting people in the right place and making sure people are equipped. They have to be a closer, and I hyphenate fearless because they need to fear less. If they can't, they can be wonderful with people, but if you cannot close a gift, that's not a good role for you. You've got to be able to go in and close that gift. They've got to be great listeners. It's so funny, in my business, when I was doing major gift work, people would say, "Oh, you have to be gregarious, you have to be outgoing and an extrovert." Not really. I'm an introvert. I need my alone time. I need my space. I can turn it on, but it's draining for me. But I'm a good listener, and a lot of times that extroverted personality, they're kind of overbearing and they don't listen well enough. So you got to make sure that your team, that they can listen, because you're looking for those clues and things that you can pick up on. They have to be strategic. Things change constantly. I'll cover a little bit more about this, but they've got to be strategic enough to think about the pieces of where things come together and how we can move things forward. Very flexible. Fundraising is not a cookie cutter approach. You really you have to have that capacity to just change and flex with what's happening, with what the donors with what the donors are saying, their lifestyle, the things that change in their businesses that create the ability for them to give. You've got to be flexible with that. And the last part is accountable. You've got to make sure that there is some accountability for the work. We used a system, contacts, appointments, proposals. Contacts, appointments, proposals. How many contacts did you make in a week? How many appointments did you have? How many proposals did you send out? At the end of the day, everything really kind of comes back to that. I remember back in my day, we ran this, and then this whole thing called metrics-based fundraising came out, and everybody was talking about that. Well, it was the same thing. It just was they called it metrics, but it was basically contacts, appointments, and proposals, and So you've got to make sure that that person can be measured and that their work is measured to get that work done. Okay, how to find prospects. Okay, we talked about this in cars. It was a great statistic. You know, we can look at mining a donor file. You can have your agency help you with that and go in and evaluate your file, do a wealth engine screening. And Carter mentioned that 50% of it is accurate, which that was shocking to me. I thought it was significantly higher than that. But it is a tool that you can use. What's funny, and I'll just a little side note. I told you about SC when I was there, and all the papers, and there was no donors, and so I'm a make it happen. I'll make the list type person. That's my personality. So I went across the hall to the doctors into the prostate center. And I said, hey, Dr. Skinner, who and he's a world-renowned surgeon. I said, who do you know that came in that I should talk to? And he goes, oh, you got to call George. So this is like my first week. So I go back to my office. I call George, and he says, I heard that you were in. I'd love to hear more about your experience with Dr. Skinner. We've got some great research we're doing on prostate cancer. Could we get together? And he goes, yeah, well, could we wait a few weeks? To do it? So long story short, we end up going to have lunch, and he says to me, he says, I'm sorry it took me so long to get to the phone when you called me. I just had gotten home from the hospital that day from my prostate cancer surgery. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, he gave us 50 grand, which was great, but I didn't know that. But see, there's some things you learn, but you got to kind of be aggressive and go after people. Now, in retrospect, I probably would have been better to wait a few weeks, or maybe send a note first and say, I heard you were there. I'd love to touch base with you. But anyway, that was funny. Board members. Who do board members know? What I've done in this scenario is I've sat with boards when I was like a director of development. We'd have board meetings, and we would go through an official part of the board meeting where we would talk about who do they know. And I would go through a list of things with the board, and hey, who do you know that owns a business? Who do you know that just sold a business? Who do you know that just got an inheritance? Who do you know here? Who do you know that is passionate about cancer research? Joe Torrey's work was with it's called Safe at Home. It was about safe rooms in schools for kids. Joe grew up in a really rough home. He was abused as a child and didn't feel like he could talk to anybody about it. So that's his ministry. So we would sit with boards and talk about who do you know that might be passionate about helping kids in that scenario. So, but the key with this one is in your board meeting, you have to have a time. It's like an official time in the agenda of we're going to take 15 minutes here, and we're going to write some names down, and you have to get them to write the names down. It's not just like, oh, I got a couple ideas, and then this is the key. At the end of that session, you collect the papers, okay? Because you create some accountability there of saying to your board, you're able to call them, hey, you mentioned Sally Smith might be interested in this. You mentioned Bob Johnson. Okay, so now you've got your list to work off from the boards. You can also run some committees. This is really helpful if you're doing capital campaigns. You can get a few of your larger major donors together. I did this. I was at a Oaks Christian School, very wealthy school in LA with like Wayne Gretzky's kids went there, and we would pull together family members, and it can kind of feel a little tacky because you're talking about people that they know and the money that they have. So you've got 10 key family members at the school, or key donors together, and you're going through lists of people, and you're saying, who do you know here in this list that has resources? And again, like I say, it can feel kind of tacky because you're talking about people and your friends and money. But at the end of the day, keep in mind, we're talking about ministry here and giving people an opportunity to minister and to create Christian opportunities and to share the gospel. So if you can keep that mindset and the passion of what you do, it makes it a lot easier to communicate with people and pull them in. Foundations or organizations, I put this here because they might be prospects. It's interesting, I remember hearing, almost any of the jobs that I had as an executive director or director of development, it was, well, what about the Microsoft Foundation? They have lots of money. Or Jeff Bezos, we should talk to them. I said, that would be awesome. Who do you know? Because even though they're foundations or organizations, it still is a person. There is a person there that works there. And so it starts that. It's a really good question to ask your board. Who do you know that runs a foundation or works at a foundation? One of their keys with foundations, this is really, really important. Make sure that you do what you can to have multiple relationships at a foundation or at an organization, a business, even a company. Because people leave, people transition out. And if they transition out, you've got no relationship there. Your relationship is gone. So do your best to try to get a couple different feet into the organization to make sure that you've got connection there. Okay, this one, how to find prospects. I used to call it my Starbucks time, but in the last few years I've kind of become a little bit more of a coffee snob. And it's called Bird Rock. It's excellent coffee, Bird Rock Roasters. And this is, I call it my Bird Rock time. And what I do here is I'll just sit down with a yellow piece of paper. I leave my laptop at home. I got nothing, no digital, and I just think, what's going on in our neighborhood? What's happening here? Who do I know? Who has a business in this community? Who's in the news? Sometimes I'll bring the newspaper, literally a physical newspaper, and I will go through and see, are there names here? Are there people in my community that are connected, that could be connected to the cause? One of my favorite stories, my old boss at USC, Bill Watson was his name, brilliant fundraiser. And he was working, he was in Santa Monica working at a different hospital at the time. And he pulled some research and said, I want to see the top 10 businesses in Santa Monica. And one of them was a veterinarian service, working with animals. And so he's got this cancer center that he's managing in Santa Monica. He calls the owner, and again, this is like he's just brainstorming, who can I find? Well, here's this guy who's got tons of money right around the corner from the cancer center. He calls the owner and says, I got a problem. Can you come help me solve this problem? Well, who doesn't like to help solve problems, okay? So Bill came up with the problem that people would come in to get cancer treatment, and they have animals, but you can't bring an animal into a cancer center. But these people are connected to their animals, and they want to see them, but they're stuck in the hospital for a week or two. What do? And so Bill brings this guy out, and he says, I've got this strip of land here, and it's probably this big, and I'm thinking I could create some kind of a dog park here where people could come and have their relatives bring their animals and they could see their pets and all, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, you're kidding me. This veterinarian says, I will take care of this. I will get it all set up. Plus, every dog needs to have this XYZ shot before they're able to come onto a medical facility. I'll do it at my facility for free, no charge, whatever. Okay, this guy goes on to become a big donor and supporter. Why? Because Bill found someone who's got money, but he found a connection to what he does and how he can be more connected, okay? I'm sure he has a loved one that dealt with cancer at some point or something, kind of everybody does, but finding that creative connection. So think about, what do you have? Where can you pull in people that are in your community that are involved in business, where you can get, find ways for them to get more deeply involved. Okay, and then just one of the keys here is, and again we talked about this in Carter's session, is prioritizing your list. I always used a system, ABC 1, 2, 3. ABC is the likelihood. What's the likelihood that they're going to make a gift? And then 1, 2, 3 is the capacity. We would say $100,000, $1 million, $5,000, whatever it be. You'd set your capacity, and obviously the goal is to be working on the A1s. That. So find some type of a system where once you've gone through and you've mined your donor file, you've gotten your list from board members, you really have to sit down and say, okay, what's the possibility of these people making a gift, and then what's the return? What do you think we can give? And if you're able to do that ABC 1, 2, 3, you're prioritizing your time. You're working your time in the most effective way possible. Okay, how to prepare. How to prepare for meetings. When we talk about meetings, it's crucial to talk about the donor and what we can find out about the donor. What do you know about this donor? What are their priorities? What have they given to in the past? Think about even outside of your mission. Can you find out? Can you see what have they given to in the community? What are the things that they're important to with them? And these days with all the digital access we have, you can research anything. You can find almost anything on donors. The key here is to think like the donor. You have to, it almost doesn't matter how great your program is or what you do. You have to think about what's important to the donor. One of the things that happened, I'm at USC, and we're doing this phenomenal cancer research, prostate research, just phenomenal stuff. And I bring this donor in for this visit, and it is beautiful. I've got it lined up perfectly. I've got the doctors knowing what to say, the staff knowing what to say. I bring this guy in, and this is a multi-million-dollar ask for a multi-million-dollar gift. I bring this guy in, and I'm giving him this tour, and we just happen to pop by one of the labs where Dr. Kotsia is doing this special research, and so he does everything just perfectly with this guy. We're walking out of the building, and the guy, and I'm like, this is amazing. He looks at me and says, now, how big are the letters going to be on the side of the building with my name on it? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And I said to myself, I blew it. I should have taken him to the physical plant and said, look at the paint, your name, look how big these letters are going to be. The paint is this color. It's going to go right here. And what's interesting, and this is school fundraising, cancer center fundraising. We would do renderings with their name on the side. This is what it's going to look. The Itoyama Plaza right here is what it's going to look like. So, but all I have to say is, you have to know, what is the donor interested? What do they give to? What are the types of things that move them? Because that's where you have to work. And then it's, oh, by the way, we do have a really good program. We actually are really strong in this, and whatever. Talk about yourself, but really focus on the donor. And then for your organization, think about, what are you good at? What are the things that you have that you really can highlight with your work? All of you have multiple programs, multiple components, but what is something that is like, this is a really, really good, strong suit that you have? What's appealing to the donors? What can you find that is something that would be of interest? Debt financing is not appealing to donors. You need money to pay off debt, but it's really hard to raise money to pay off debt. That's not something that's appealing. And unfortunately, there's a hospital in San Diego that spent a ton of money on renovations, and they are so far in debt that they can't do anything. But donors don't want to come in and just pay off debt. They want to be a part of exciting things. So, what is appealing? What do you need, but also you can articulate well? You've got to be able to tell your story, and you've got to be able to do it simply and easily. So think about, what are the pieces? You might have a program where you really have a need, and it's got 10 different components to it, but only 3 of the components are really clearly, you're able to articulate. Focus on those 3 when you talk with that donor. And then what can you successfully deliver? It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have setbacks. And in our culture today, I tell our clients, those that use ViewSpark, and I think almost all of you do, it's okay to say, hey, we made a mistake, or we didn't quite get this done, but we did that. That transparency is crucial with donors. But you want to make sure that you're also focusing on, what can you really deliver? Hey, if we really did get this $15,000 gift, $25,000 gift, we think we really can do this, and so you want to make sure you have that success. So think about what you can successfully deliver, and then develop a case for support. What you can write out, and I'll cover that in just a second here. But what are some things, just really quickly? What are some things in your program that are appealing? That if I were a donor saying, I've got $50,000 that I'd like to give, what are some things that come to your mind that are appealing that you would think of asking someone for?
We're engaged in a capital campaign right now to redo some of our buildings, and also to build some housing, transitional housing for our graduates, so that they can get a better footing before they transition into the real world. It's a great program after their junior hall, so that's something I would
And that, what you just said, the last part of that, so that they can get a footing and have a better chance, that's the key. Because I don't want to build a building. I don't want to pay for a program. I want to help people get a footing to move forward. That's great. That's great, Jack. You're so good at that stuff. So, anybody else? What other thoughts you have that is appealing, or something that would say this is really hot? Ellie, you got about 25 things.
Our family housing project is a $620,000 $20,000 project down in Clean Furniture. So what are we solving? We're solving the fact that we can now house youth from adolescent boys and other kids with moms from 12 to 18, where we were not able to do that before.
Right.
So their support in purchasing a room, like $25,000 to $30,000 per room, if they want their name on the plaque, right? If they want to sponsor a room, they are supporting that family housing unit. They are supporting 15 more families that we're able to house and add more programs and services, but they're solving the problem of that youth gap that we're having right now, with youth that are sleeping on couches,
Yeah.
and youth that are sleeping in the streets, and the 800 youth that we have that are homeless in our city alone.
Yeah.
They're helping to solve that problem.
That's right.
So that's one huge one that we're seeing, just building a youth advisory board and supporting those families in that.
That's great. That's great. So think of those things. Think of those things that are appealing that you could really share. Okay, let's talk about a case for support. It's important that you have something written. Now, I strongly recommend when you go to meet with a donor the first time or even the second time, don't bring anything with you. You don't bring stacks of paper. I remember seeing it before. Someone, they come and they sit down and like, here's all this stuff. Well, but you haven't even talked to me. You don't even know what I'm interested in. Why would you bring all this stuff? You want to go without anything, and you want to listen, and then you can bring components. But at some point, you do need to have a written plan, a written strategy to develop. In the document, in the written component of the document, make sure you have an executive summary. I was just talking with someone the other day about this, and they've got this beautiful plan. It's 15, 16 pages. No one's going to read that. You know, in our culture today, it's just too much information for the first stage. Make sure that you have a really brief executive summary on the top component of your document. You've got written copy, obviously outlining the program. It's really good to show diagrams as well, how things fit together. When we create, one of the things I did at SC, I worked for this guy, a brilliant scientist or a researcher, and he was restoring sight for blind. He was working with some crazy stuff. He was an eye doctor combined. I mean, he's like brilliant guy. So we built out this plan, but we had all this scientific language and everything that I had to kind of dumb down for my level, because that's where donors live in that. But we also then built out the diagrams that showed you make this $50 million gift, or we're working on a $50 million campaign. And this is where part of this goes. And then it goes down here. The lines come down. There's 3 components. This is the head of the center right here. Then we've got these 4 components here. And then below that, in this section here, we've got 4 different components. People like to see things. So you want to be thinking, not only people do they read, but there are also people that are more seeing pictures. So make sure you've got diagrams that lay things out, how things fit together. It's easier to look at and easier to process. Endorsements. It's great to have endorsements. If you can get other people to say, to talk about what you're talking about. You mentioned the youth gap. What was it called?
The youth advisory board, but we have a gap between that 12 and 18 for adolescent males in our city.
Yeah. So that is a problem that is nationwide, and you could very easily find some famous researcher who's made a comment and put that in your document. Well, according to Sally Smith, this age gap is a real problem. We're addressing that right now. We're working on that. So if you get that endorsement from someone else, it also, it just kind of creates that relevance of your plan. The key in all of this is you have to tie your work, tie your case for support to impact. What is it going to do? Again, you're really good at what you do. You have great program, but donors are looking for impact. In fact, years ago, my dad was telling me a story about, he was at World Vision for 50 years, and basically for 50 years. And towards the end of his, and it used to be where people would just write checks and here's the money and go do your work and it would just disappear. Well, one year, probably it was the late 90s, early 2000s, I think, he gets a call from a donor and it says, I'm here in Kenya and I want to do X, Y, Z. In fact, he was not a donor yet. He'd not given to World Vision. He said, I'm here in Kenya. I'm trying to accomplish this. How can you help me accomplish what I want to do here in Kenya with these kids? And by the way, I'm ready to write $1 million check. Okay. He wants impact. Donors are looking for impact. It's just a different game these days. So you've got to focus on what you can do to help them see the impact of their gift. Can't talk enough about that. Okay, this is kind of fun. I like talking about these things. The in-person meetings. When you go and you talk with a donor, some key things that are really important to point out. Most importantly, go to them. Don't just expect them to come down to the mission. Don't expect the first visit. Go see them. It's kind of funny. This is a story. So back in my Rest 3 days, I was working with New York City Rescue Mission. Glenn McKinney. You guys know Glenn? And this is back when we were doing space ads. I don't even know if you do newspaper ads anymore, but we were doing space ads. And the New York Times kept raising their price, and Glenn kept saying, I can't get them to come down there. If they could just see our work, they would discount us, and we'd be able to do the space ads, because it was getting crazy expensive. So I came into town. I said, Glenn, we need to go to them. We need to see them and see him. So we ended up going to the New York Times and spending time with the guy there. And the funny part of that story is right after 9/11, and we're in the building, and there was an anthrax scare. We got locked in the building for 3 hours. So we're like, hey, we're with this guy who controls the ad budget at the New York Times. So we got 3 hours with this guy, just having a conversation. And long story short, he gave a deep discount to the mission for their space ads. But we went to them. You want to find people in their turf. And I loved, Carter, in your session, talking about learning about the donors, seeing things of their interest, like being in their office and looking around and seeing what are they interested in. Go find out more about them. Interview them. Don't speak at them. Go and ask them. Look, you're listening for clues. What are some things that move them? They might talk about their kids. They might talk about, you got 25 things you do at the mission. And they might say, yeah, well, the reason I took this meeting is I really think that computer lab was really, I saw an article about the computer lab, or I saw a sentence about the computer lab. Well, forget everything else. You're talking about the computer lab now with this guy, okay? I mean, that's where you want to be. You want to learn as much as you can. Ask permission. When you talk with the donor, I used this line, and I think it was Del Maxfield from Denver who actually taught this to me in the 90s. But he would go in with donors and he would say, hey, listen, that's really interesting. You're interested in that program. As we get this ramped up, would it be okay if I talk to you more about this? And what you're doing is you're setting up that donor to have that easy phone call coming back and saying, hey, you told me I could call you about this, but it just gives you that in. So you're asking for permission. Hey, as we navigate this new computer lab, I know you've got this background in that, and we might get stuck with some things. As we navigate building out this dog park at the hospital, there's some things I might not know about. Could I call you about that? Could we talk more about that? Great way to stay connected with the donor. Ask more questions. What are some, and in your questions, find out more about their giving, what they like to give to. What are some good giving experiences? What are some bad giving experiences they've had? You want information. And that's how you steer what you're going to talk about from what you do. You've got all these arrows in your quiver, but you're looking for which one you want to deploy with that donor. Be in control of everything, okay? And this is when you're with them, when they come on a tour. I had an experience when I was working with Joe Torrey. This is how I learned my lesson. And I had a donor who was a very significant donor, a very large donor. We were going to have lunch together. So it's me, it's Joe and Allie, his wife, and Steve, the donor, and his wife. And I go to the restaurant. Steve shows up. His wife shows up. Joe comes with his wife and some other guy. And I have no idea who this person is. Okay? So we sit down at the table. I'm sitting here. This is the table. I'm sitting here. Steve is here, the donor. Steve's wife. Joe puts the other guy, Matt, who I didn't know, next to me. Joe sits here and Allie sits here. And it's a loud restaurant. And I'm like, so Joe, tell Steve about the program and how we're, what in the world? Well, I find out later, I said, who is Matt? And Joe says, well, I wanted a buffer because I didn't want to have to talk to this person. So I wanted to bring someone that could kind of protect me from having to talk to someone. And I'm just like, you're kidding. And so I learned my lesson. And from then on, it was like, you're coming to this meeting. We're going to have a round table. You're going to sit here. The donor's going to sit here. I'm going to sit here. And that's it. There's nobody else coming, right? Oh, your wife's coming. Okay, that's fine. You bring her. But you have to be in control of these things because the goal is to have a conversation with this donor and to move them towards a gift or ask for a gift. And you've got to make sure that you're in control. So, hey, I've made a lot of mistakes when I was doing major gifts. So anyway, it's a team effort. Make sure that your team members know their lines, especially when you bring them into your mission. I had a situation once with I was at USC, working at the School of Gerontology, and I had this phenomenal researcher that was doing some research on aging and longevity. And I'm bringing this donor through the halls. We're talking about what his gift could do, whatnot. And this Dr. Longo is his name. And Dr. Longo comes out. I said, Dr. Longo, why don't you meet XYZ donor? And he looks at me and says, Are you ready to make a gift? When are you going to make your gift? Are you kidding me? Like, that is so offensive. And I don't need you to ask the donor when he's going to make the gift. I need you to talk about the research that you're doing and show him the great work that you're doing. Make sure your team members know their lines. Make sure that they know what they can do. Even if they're sweeping the floor. Hey, what are you doing, Bob? I'm sweeping this floor, mopping this floor to make it safe for the kids that are going to be playing here. Okay? Talk about those things. Everybody you interface with needs to have a line and needs to know what they're connected with. Move them from meeting to meeting to meeting. It's important when you're communicating with a donor. It's just a lot easier if you kind of have another idea. Like you go and you sit with them in their office and you talk, and then you say, hey, it'd be great if they said, love to come see this new program, whatever. Great. Well, let's pull out our calendars. Let's get it on the books. Because if you don't do that, and it doesn't work every time, then you're kind of stuck with trying to get back in touch, trying to connect with them, and trying to find that next step. Be thinking about like what would be the next meeting for them, and it might not be. And this is a major donor where you're going to see and sit with them in their office. It might not be that they come to the mission. And by the way, they might not ever come to the mission. They don't have to see your facility to be passionate about what you're doing and support you. We talked in Carter sessions about donors that just say, I don't want to be communicated with. It's okay. I don't need to be courted. Use that energy somewhere else. You're going to get my check anyway. That's all good. The next meeting might be you bringing the program director to that person in their office or to their lunch. So think about that. That's, but keep moving them from meeting to meeting. Also, I see a lot of folks, again, you're usually using ViewSpark. You can use that as a tool in between meetings. It's that short little update. In fact, one of the reasons I started ViewSpark, I was at USC, and I'm all this money, all these resources, and I just finished a lunch with a donor who was really interested in what we're doing, and I don't have a way to communicate real time what's happening. Well, now with ViewSpark, what I'm seeing happen in that type of scenario, you have lunch with a donor, you go sit in your car, and you send a message to Dr. Smith in the lab. Hey, Dr. Smith, can you send me a 30-second video on what's happening right now on this prostate research that you're doing? Drive your car, park in your office, and 10, 15 minutes later, you get this 30-second video from the Dr. Smith, and then you go to your donor. Hey, Bob and Sally, so great to have lunch with you today. Hey, here's a quick update from Dr. Smith of what's happening right now in the lab. Right now. Boom, send, done, it's gone. Takes you 2 minutes to do. Super easy. But you've brought that donor into the functionality of what you're doing, into the real time. That's far better than bringing the stack of papers that has really nothing to do with what they're interested in. And we have to be so careful with this. In fact, one of my investors in our company, very wealthy man, and he said to me, he's like, he's Indian, and from India, and he supports Christian outreach in India, and he's a major donor to this organization. And he said, I got their report. They said, here's your annual report just for you and your giving. It was all about South America. And he said, he's like, that's great that it's about South America, but I'm interested in India. I gave to India. And so you've got to listen to your donors, and as you communicate with them, in meetings, in whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that it's focused on what they're interested in, what they're doing. Okay, let's talk about the ask process and asking donors for gifts. First of all, it sounds simple. Pick the right location. It's not a golf tournament. It's not a loud restaurant. Be careful where you go. It might be at your facility. It might be in their office. The key is you want them to be really comfortable and at ease and surrounded in an environment that's comfortable. Maybe it's in their home. Bring the right people with you. Who adds to the conversation? Who adds credibility? It might be a doctor. In fact, we did this a lot at SC. I would bring a researcher with me. And again, I was in control. I can't preach that enough. I would say to the doctor or the researcher, this is all you're supposed to say. This is all you're going to do. And Joe Torrey from then forward, Joe, you're going to sit next to the donor when you sit down at the table, and this is what you're talking about with this program. This is the story that you're going to tell, okay? Don't talk about these 6 other things. You're going to talk about this. You want to bring people with you can add credibility. There are some scenarios where you can even bring a donor with you who is, if there's multiple components of a program and there's some familiarity with the donor and with both donors, where you could say, hey, I wanted to bring Jane with me. Jane has been really supportive of the program. In fact, she's doing this. And it can kind of create a feel of Jane saying, I'm doing this, you should do this too. And I believe in them. It's that third-party endorsement. It's someone else saying something. Again, be really strategic about who you can do that with. Reaffirm their interest. Talk about, like we said before, hey, would it be okay if I called you as we work through this process? In this scenario, you're able to say, hey, you mentioned you were interested in the new computer lab. This is something that we're working on. Could you see yourself being involved at this level? But using that phrase, you said you were interested in, it's a bit of an assumed close because you're already telling them, you've heard them say that they were interested. It just really makes it a lot easier in that communication. Give specific reasons why their gift will make a difference. Just like we were talking about just a minute ago, I'm sweeping the floors because it's going to make it safe for kids. Transitional housing, we're going to help people get a step up. That's why their gift is going to make a difference. It's not that their gift of X dollars is going to buy chairs and tables. What are those going to do? It's going to provide meals for people that haven't had a warm meal in a long time. Or an opportunity for a mom and a kid to both be together in one facility, which is normal. Instead of, oh, we can take the mom, we can't take the kid. Well, we can't do this. So give specific reasons there. Be prepared for gift size options. This is like we were talking about with the case for support. There are some scenarios where you'll walk in and when you've done your homework and you say, I think this donor could give around $50,000, right around that level. If you have some different options, it's just again, arrows in your quiver. As you talk with them, there are some scenarios where you might say, we're building out this whole new component of our program. There's about 5 different pieces of this puzzle. One of them is this, and it's going to do that, and it's about $50,000. I would really bet it would be wonderful if you could step into that role and take that. But if that's too much, there's another piece here that's at the $25,000 level that will do X, Y, Z. It just gives you an opportunity. So it's not a yes, no. It's a little bit more of a either or. But do talk with them about wanting them to be at a specific level. Outline a timing for their gift. When will they want to make a gift? What timing is good for them? I remember getting a call from a woman, and it was like March, and she wanted to make a large gift. I'm like, great. But I would have never thought that March was a time that, it's always year end. It's like, but then we found out, well, she's on some certain bonus schedule, and in February she gets a bonus, a big bonus every year. And so guess what? In my notes, Sally Smith gets a bonus in February. So then March is when we talk about that. So think about the timing. Also, one of the little tricks thing that we used to do with donors, specifically around the planned giving piece, we would have donors that would say, when I die, I'm going to give you $1 million, from our estate, whatever, and that $1 million is going to generate $50,000 a year in support for some specific program because we put it in an annuity or whatnot. What we would do with donors like that is we'd say, that's wonderful. That is so great. Thank you so much. We're so faithful to that. And we hope you live a long time. We hope we don't see that money for a long, long time. And, this is the key, and in the meantime, and that $1 million is going to generate $50,000, in the meantime, would you be willing to commit to making a $50,000 gift of cash every year, until you pass? So you, in essence, you get the planned gift, which is great, but you can't touch it. It doesn't generate anything. But you get the donor to commit to making that gift annually, the same amount of gift, or half, up until the time that they pass. It just, again, it's another opportunity to, they already want to give to you. They already see the value of what that $50,000 or whatever, $5,000, whatever it's going to do for the program. So instead of waiting, let them do it now. Let them experience the benefit of it now. And then the key, ask about follow-up and then do it. You have to be thinking about, so often we see with giving, you get the gift and then you just disappear. I got the gift and it's done. But you got to be thinking about the next gift. You got to think about what's coming after that. You want to be able to communicate, we're doing what we said we were going to do. And this is such a huge thing with ViewSpark, and we tell our donors, we're here showing this to you. Our 30-second video is showing you what we're doing. We said we were going to do this, we're doing it. Communicate that back to your donor. That's how you create those recurring gifts, the longevity, and experience. I want to show you real quick. This is Tom Sasser. I'm going to see if I can get my computer to work. Tom is a brilliant, brilliant fundraiser, and another ViewSpark client. He works for an organization called Frontier Horizon, and they work with orphans in Ukraine and a couple other countries, and of course just got crazy busy when Ukraine war happened. But this is the kind of thing that knits a donor to your organization. John, and I have permission to share, John made a $5,000 donation, and Tom, sent him this video here.
Hey, John and all the team at Power Kids. Hope that you're well today. It's in my car catching up on some work before I go in and watch my daughter do some gymnastics. But I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for your ongoing support. You guys have been remarkable partners in so many ways for Frontier Horizon. And we just wanted to say, out of all the things that you can do, the fact that you have included us as a part of the good that you're doing in the world, we're so humble, so thankful. We'll continue to report and let you know the impact that you're having in Ukraine, the kids that are displaced there, the many care packages that are going back into the country, and all the other things that we're doing in Nicaragua and Colombia. You're a part of all of it. Thank you so much, and God bless you for your support. Take care.
Simple, real, raw, and again, our culture these days has moved us to where this is okay. Back when I was a kid, I'd watch my dad on TV with World Vision, and he would, it's the 4-hour World Vision special, and there was my dad with the big oak desk and the globe and the bookshelf and the suit and tie and the scroll at the bottom. It was always Luswata. Luswata was the child that my dad met in the village in the dirt and whatnot. And thank you for your gift to help Luswata. Those days are gone. You got 30 seconds, But this is a touch point that you can provide to your donor, major donor, middle donor, whatever, that gives them that custom feel of connection. And it takes 30 seconds to do. But the point I want to make is just the way to thank donors. And Tom is such a brilliant fundraiser in his communication, just the way he's able to just say, thank you for what you're doing, for all the things we're doing, but thank you for choosing us. You chose us. That's a great way to endorse with that donor. Thank him several times. I've always heard 7 times. That was the whole thing. Do you want to thank a donor 7 times? I don't know. 7 times, 8 times. Just be thankful. Just be thankful. Okay, let me just close here real quick. Well, I'm going to give you 4 keys, and then happy to answer questions. The first thing, be brave. It can be scary. It can be scary. I am a competitive person. I like to win. I am determined and strong, and I still get scared when I was calling major donors. I don't want to be rejected, but I did it. So you got to be brave. Be willing to make mistakes. You know, you don't want to be the funder. And I'm talking with you as well as your team members. You want to encourage them. It's okay to make mistakes. You know, if someone's in their office just continuing to clean up that donor file and continuing to get all this information, once I get all this done, I'll be able to go out and talk to the donors. That's awesome. Well, I want you to spend 2 hours a day getting all that done, and I want you to go out and see donors, because this is what we need to do. You know, I shared the example at SC and like the papers and you know, everywhere, no donor file, and just calling that donor the day he gets home from the surgery. Oops. Okay, well, that one actually worked out well. I mean, he gave us 50 grand, great donor, but that was, you know, that was a mistake, but it was okay. But be okay making mistakes. Feed your belief. This is so important, and it's easy for you to do with your work because all you have to do is walk down the hall and see the impact that you're having. I used to, at the cancer center, we had like, there was the cancer center, and then my office was on the 7th floor of this other building, kind of in more of a corporate feeling. I would find times where I would be sitting there and I'd just be frustrated, discouraged. I'm done. I would walk out, I'd go over to the hospital, and I would see the doctors. I'd walk through the actual hospital floors and see the patients that were coming in. I'm like, this is important stuff. All you have to do is walk through your facility and see what's happening. Talk to some of the residents. Get your team members to do that. That's how you feed your belief. The more you get inspired with that, the easier it is to go out and communicate and share that with donors. And the last one real quick, activity cures discouragement. I found that if I was not making enough phone calls, not enough visits, I could get really discouraged because I was counting on that one donor to come through. If only this one guy comes through and gives us the gift, it's all gonna go well. The truth is, I needed about 20 guys and about 20 women to keep everything going, because you just never know what's going to fall in place. You know, we talked about donor files and what was the thing? It was the killers of switching databases and how it never happens on time. And you know, it's like, well, it's going to take 6 months. Once we get the database done, you know, in 6 months we'll be fine. And it's always longer than that. Well, you kind of, if you're waiting for that one thing to happen, that one donor to make the gift, it's going to be really frustrating. Get out there, get a lot of irons in the fire, get a lot of things going, because they're going to fall at different times. You just want to make sure you've got a lot of things moving on. So, hey, let me answer questions. Anything I can ask or answer, I'd be happy to. Any thoughts, comments? Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Yeah.
We're new here, so we're very interested in those 30-second videos.
Mm-hmm.
So how exactly would that work with your agency as far as how does it work? That's what I'm trying to figure.
Yeah, good question. And so that's the company that I own called ViewSpark, and it's different than what I'm presenting on. But yeah, we saw it and we thought. Yeah. It's a simple technology. It's a program you can be a part of where it integrates with you get your database. Your names come out of there. You say, I want these donors to be involved with it. You can segment it and say, I want I'm going to create a segment of middle donors. Donors who've given over $1,000, donors who've given 500 plus, whatever, and you create those segments, and then directly from your phone or from your computer, you can record that 30-second video and then send that out and choose, I want to send this to middle donors, I want to send this to people that are in the computer labs, however that is. And it enables you to have more customization and targeting donors based on their giving levels or based on what they're interested in. And then that thank you video I showed you, that's auto-generated. And so directly from your phone, you can see that John made the $5,000 gift. You tap a button. You get a push notification saying John just made a $5,000 gift. You tap that button, and it pre-populates an email or a text to that donor, depending on what you have. Text is an untapped market. In fact, I should say something about that. And then all you do is record the video and press send. That's really, really simple. So I do want to say one thing about text, because I'm getting so many questions. This is unrelated generally to major donor work. And I'm getting a lot of questions about it because we handle text. Text is really becoming an important component of your fundraising strategy, and it's really an untapped market. In fact, Dave Rayleigh, I was talking with Dave, who was with Masterworks, brilliant guy, and we came up with these numbers and looking at this research. For every 100 emails that go out from nonprofits, and every nonprofit is sending out emails, for every 100 emails that go out for nonprofits, only 5 text messages go out. It is untapped. And out of the 5 text messages, there's a 98% open rate. Now the challenge is, for decades, we've been collecting phone number in our database, not cell phone, home, so you don't always know what a cell phone number is, and you also just don't have that because donors haven't given those. So we work on some of those things. But it is an important component for you think about in your fundraising strategy, email as well as text. But with major donors, with middle donors, it's a great technology. It's a great platform, a great channel for you to use to give those little updates and affirmations on what you're doing. We're done. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. And I'm around today. If there's anything I can be helpful with, just let me know.